an industry that we are incredibly long-term bullish on.
Is that Marvin Gaye?
And then we see like this massive pivot, and that's sort of what keeps me up at night right now.
So we told you that Steven
have
has
positioned ourselves
intro music in
like
his
a
magic
way that
line.
is safe
I know. And I was like,
Bullshit.
why didn't you suggest that for ours?
I don't know if we're prepared for
what do you mean?
the freaking rip
Like, how can I make
Yeah, I mean,
my show?
Eric, I'm glad you pointed that out
did
because like we are
suggest that
certainly
have an
long-term bullish, and the
intro
reason
and, like,
I'm
waiting
being
room
cautious
music
because I'm
for the
fucking
show,
greedy. Like
but it was
I
met
just
with just
need
like
to buy
it
more
started
with lower.
But it
And
started and
it's like,
ended with a
you know,
suggestion.
from everything from macro market.
when it came to
and even
your
if,
show,
you know, you play a little technical
it-
analysis.
and it
like,
was
we
fire.
could certainly go lower.
What was the song?
I don't know
you
what song. Just a
I'm
nice
looking
little
for that
up
opportunity
tempo
to
beat.
buy more. I think a lot
we
of
were
people
ready
are
to gamble.
Like,
Like by the
game.
time you went live, I was like,
are we
tell me
gonna
what to
bottom?
bet
So
on.
maybe
Maybe.
acquire more.
I mean, I
I'm
almost
curious
just
about
levered
like
long just listening to
Steven's
the
take on
music. I
the
was so
quantitative
pumped up.
tightening
AI
part because
generated, or did you find
you
a
mentioned on Twitter that
song,
Happy
or where'd you
QT
get it?
Day,
Yeah, it's
which is
royalty-free.
this is the
Okay.
official start of the
Nice.
Fed
Just looking
doing
up, like,
quantitative tightening,
like
and that's where
80s
I get a
kinda
little
synth wave.
confused.
Let me
type
give my
stuff,
take
but
on
yeah.
this.
Kinda what
bottom
we wanted
really
for
quick,
Alfalfa.
and then let's
Remember when
shift
we
to
talked about
quantitative
that?
tightening,
Yeah,
and
you
then-
put a lot
Anyway.
of work into that.
All right. Welcome to the Alfalfa podcast. We are for entrepreneur
question
and investor friends
is this a bottom
seeking
to
the
me
edge
is
for the
already
Alfalfa
a
Not
fascinating
today.
question.
money in meeting. No, not
Everybody
today.
exists for
We
a
are
different
three
purpose
Three
and has
friends.
a different goal.
Sadly
My
missing Eric. He's
long-term
traipsing around
sort
the
of, let's just
world.
call it the big picture goal here is
Currently in
freedom.
Turkey.
And in the
So we
short
miss
term,
him.
it's how
I
do
don't know
I
if he'll
sleep
be
better
back
at
next
night?
week.
And so
Hopefully
the
the
question
following
of
week.
like,
I know we have
is
maybe
this
an
a bottom
option
to me
style DEGEN bet
fundamentally
to
for
talk
a
about.
type
So I
investor
wish
like me is a
he was
flawed
really here for
question.
this because
Because
hold
what
up,
it does
guys.
is it forces you to
Getting
behave
word in the chat that
stupidly.
the audio is
You start
wrecked.
to make poor
What do you mean?
decisions.
Yeah, I was just
Sounds
about
like
to
they're
say
here.
If I'm
Hearing
asking
two things
myself
at
what
the
is the
same time.
bottom, the only reason I'm asking myself
no.
that is because I'm trading the asset in the first place. And
Two streams
people
at
like
the
me,
same
or
time.
just speaking for
That doesn't
myself, and
sound
I think a lot of people, I
enjoyable.
represent a lot of people. If you have high conviction, if you
It's like an
fundamentally
echo?
believe in this asset, there really is no reason to sell
Chat,
in the
help.
first place, because what are you doing? You're trying to make arbitrary, well, they could be fundamentally
go
life-changing
unlive?
gains. Like somebody
Oh,
out there,
no.
1 out of 100 people is going to
bad?
do what you just said, Nick, and is going to
Should I
strike
stop
gold.
saying
Is going
things?
to win. They're going to time it perfectly. But the data doesn't show
Jordan,
that.
can you pull it up on your phone?
It shows that
and
fundamentally
see if
people
you
that
can listen to
trade
it?
lose against the market. Like, how many books do I
They're
have to
hearing
fucking
another
read
podcast?
to understand that I
Wait,
can't
Are
outsmart
we
the
inside
market?
of another pod?
Inception.
Psychology of money. It doesn't matter what it's about,
Podcast
whether it's
Inception?
real estate or stocks
It's
or
playing an
crypto.
old episode.
These are the lessons
Get
that
the
I have
fuck
learned the hard
How
way
is that possible?
over and over and over.
But it
I
sounds
knew
like
this
this was a
so, and I'm not
simulation.
putting it. I'm
Wait,
not
what?
saying I completely disagree with you guys. I'm not saying I disagree.
It sounds like
with
it's just
people that
there's just
behave this way.
another.
But I think
There's
it's
just
a
another
game.
pod
And
playing.
you guys
in the
want to play a
back. Do you
game.
have- do you
Check
have
all
a-
your
We-
tabs.
and
Do you have
I
a
don't
tab
point this
playing
out
in the
often enough,
background?
So maybe it's a good opportunity to point it out. If you enjoy playing this game, if you like a little bit of gambling, if you like a little bit of fun, and you're
Oh my god.
I'm pretty sure you just have another pod playing in the background somewhere. Well, I'm hearing it on delay because I'm listening to it on the stream here. But it sounds like you're playing like the last pod in the background, and it's.
I've never even heard of that before.
Wait, it's not open in any browser window?
No, there's no browsers open on this.
Why would it even be doing that even if it was open?
I think it's okay now. I don't know. I think it's okay now.
Is it gone? Let's check.
I-
Yeah, for live listeners, let us know if it's gone.
It sounds fine to me here on
Holy
the stream.
shit. I wouldn't even know how to do
Podcast
that if we
Inception.
tried.
I'm telling
Okay.
you, a glitch in the matrix is the surest sign of
Of what?
everything's
Serendipity?
No, just everything's okay.
Okay.
You just need those glitches.
I think it's fine now.
Okay.
You wouldn't want a perfect.
So we don't
universe.
know. We don't know what happened. Just the ghost of Arman from the last podcast was just.
You
speaking.
don't want the universe to be perfect. Trust me. You don't want that.
I need tactical Arman, not
Yeah.
philosophical
No,
Arman
no,
right
I
now.
want- Can we just please keep going that one direction? Just
Jordan, can you update the
can you
chat on that?
retitle the episode to "We're in a simulation and the Matrix is broken"?
Okay.
Okay, guys. I think we're good now. Dan said we're good.
All right. If
Okay.
Dan,
I think we're good.
if Dan says
All
we're
right.
good,
Dan said we're good.
I'm
we're
good. All right. So
Apologies.
let's continue. I don't know if you guys heard this, but Eric's out. He might be back next week. Maybe not.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks to the chat for hooking us up. So we got a lot of people in the chat today. Adam, I hope you saw that Formula One race, brother, this weekend. What a banger. Tunsky, Dan, Tyler, Basil, Matt. I know there's more. Alan, Josh, Dan,
Hell yeah.
Kate, Johnson.
And you guys got to meet so many of these lovely people.
Yeah,
And I am
you're
so jealous.
you missed out, brother.
I know.
Well, I was a man of the people with the crew in the house. Nick was in his high tower in his
how
luxury
high up was
hotel.
he?
He was
How
definitely on
many
the top
stories?
floor.
Yeah, top
He was sitting in
floor.
a bathrobe.
What do you mean?
the
They
whole
didn't even have my
time.
reservation
Steven,
when I
for the
got.
record, I am also a man of the people and would have been with you. So, well done, soldier.
Theoretical man of the people.
Yeah, it's theoretical. I like that.
I
In
like
spirit.
to think you would have been there.
I would at least venture.
So we'll talk about permissionless in a second. We're going to talk a little 14-1 bet that I made on the election. I'd like to share with you all.
Okay.
Maybe a good lesson in risk return, I think. Steven's got a DEGEN trade idea, so we'll get into that a little bit. He's going to share. I don't know what it is. I'd like a Techstars update, just like a... So Steven and I haven't spoken to Arman since 2 weeks ago just because he's been in it. I think we've traded a few transactional texts like,
Yeah.
hey, this good? Yes, good. Are you coming? Yes, no. So anyway, we need to catch up with Arman ourselves, and the crew can listen in. We also got some investable themes from Permissionless we like to just go over. And then there was 2 recent talks that I think they kind of hit the same line and worthy to go over. Eric Voorhees did a little opener at Permissionless, kind of talking about code is law, code is potentially better than law. He talked a lot about regulation.
The theme was, why are we here?
Yeah, why are we here?
Why are we here?
And then also Bill Gurley just did...
I would like to know as well.
It's a good question to ask right now.
Yeah. Bill Gurley also did a talk recently where he talked about regulatory capture. And I think it's good for a little meaning part because it does really impact our lives. So I'd like to dive a little deeper into that one. But anyway, support the pod. Donate on streamlabs.com/alfalfapod. If you donate $9 or more, the comment will show up right on the screen, probably above Steven's head is what I'm imagining. You can donate monthly as well if you like.
What should you put above Steven's head?
I wonder if
the
emojis
question.
just show up. They may not.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, another way you can support the pod, share an episode you like. Maybe it's end up being this episode after we're done. What other announcements do we have? Steven started a new little pod, if you guys didn't notice, called Magic Lines.
I don't know if it's a pod, but it's definitely a YouTube show.
Okay, it's a YouTube show.
It'd be very bad audio only.
Yeah, so
bad.
he just did it, and we will talk a little bit about some of the stuff you brought up as well. What are we drinking today? It was actually your
Ranch
time.
water.
It was your time to drink alcohol.
Oh my God.
But I knew the mode you were in.
Oh my
so
God.
we
If you had told me, I would have made something happen. I would
Nah.
have Instacarted it. But thank you. Yeah.
this is my favorite. I like ranch waters.
These are great, actually.
tasty.
They taste better than ever right now. I don't know why.
And for some reason, they delivered big gulps.
I like that.
Yeah. So we're
I'm
ready
not
to-
drinking that. I'm apparently drinking a $300 bottle of whiskey.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
That I did not purchase, but
Weller?
happy to drink.
Yeah.
This is, Weller? Is that what you
Yeah.
got?
No, that's what you had. Yeah.
By we, I mean me.
Yes.
Yeah.
The royal we.
yeah. I like these. Let's see how they go.
Yeah, they're light, 4.7%, 1 gram of sugar and gluten free.
Yeah.
Do you ever have like the ranch water, like the cocktail?
I love
With
ranch water.
tequila?
Wait, isn't it just tequila soda?
No.
No.
Special.
Lime, lots of lime.
Lots of
Yeah.
lime.
You can shake it up for extra
It
points.
makes it much better.
Hmm.
Much better. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
All right. Let's give a shout out to our sponsor, ZBiotics. The URL is zbiotics.com/alfalfa. Jordan, if you could spam a link in the chat.
Best sponsor.
So we had a lot of ZBiotics action in Permissionless.
yeah.
Like we obviously brought some to use, but a whole lot of the Alfalfa community brought some.
Did we
and
get
there
some
was
new reviews?
oh yeah, definitely good reviews, but also there was like this joint effort to make sure that everyone had one. You know, people were in the
That's awesome.
in the Permissionless chat were like, I'm on my way to the meetup. I don't have one. Can anyone bring one? I already got
freaking
you,
out.
bro. Like people were like, I need them. So
I love it.
yeah, I think we were just talking like, what kind of black magic is this? But it works. So
My goal is to add a 0 to the bottom line of ZBiotics.
ooh,
That's how much
okay.
I love this.
Well, you're gonna get to do that. Talk about it with Zach
That's
in a couple
right.
weeks. We're gonna go up to
That's
San
right.
Francisco and
Brainstorm.
visit him and hear about the story. But yeah, just a reminder for people who haven't heard, it's a pre-alcohol probiotic. So you take it before you drink and make sure you don't feel like crap in the morning. Most people think it's from dehydration, but it's because alcohol creates this toxin in your body, and ZBiotics is an enzyme that breaks down that toxin so you don't feel like crap. So I think during ZBiotics during Permissionless, I was able to get some workouts in, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Was able to make the talks in the morning. So
That's pretty awesome.
Shout out to them. And then hopefully we're talking to them about getting more involved with the podcast, maybe some potential giveaways and whatnot. So hopefully that'll come up soon in the next month or so. But yeah, anyway, head to zbiotics.com/alfalfa to check it out. All right. Let's do a little.
Where do you want to start?
I want to start with a little permissionless love bath because it's fun to go to a crypto conference, right? You know, it's not like a normal conference. I guess for most of us, it's not like you have a ton of meetings to do. Kind of fun. You get to check out what's going on, learn some things, hear some good talks. But it's a lot more fun to go with your crew.
Yeah.
And do it together with a big group of people who kind of already know each other. A lot of people we just saw in person for the first time. And it was epic. I had a blast with everyone. We basically spent the whole week with everyone. Got a bunch of lunches together and hung out a bunch. The meetup itself was a banger. We had roughly over 50 people.
Was the meetup like the first like coming together?
No, not at all.
Didn't you? Yeah, you were like it started in like the
started at the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah, we ran into Troy at the airport right when Steve and I got off the plane, and then we met up with Paradox and Bernie and Brad from the Discord at Baggage Claim.
Amazing.
And we just rolled on from there, and we had a nice little crew. So for the meetup, I think we had over 50 people come throughout the night.
I told you, man.
Yeah, you were the one who called it. I actually didn't think it was going to be that big, but
50 plus was my
got a good little overlap with Permissionless for sure.
Yeah.
Big shout out and big thank you to Emma. Her name is Paradox in the Discord. She set up a hell of an event. It was flawless, worked perfectly. And I personally know it took her a lot of effort to reach out to all the venues and coordinate all the BS. And we just want to say a heartfelt thank you to her for setting that up. Also, shout out to Basil for corralling us from time to time and making sure, the group was kind of moving in the right direction. That was acknowledged and very much appreciated. And Hookem for putting together a little Airbnb for the whole crew to stay together at the event. I thought it was awesome.
That's
I don't know, Steven, what was it like hanging out at the Alfalfa house?
Yeah, give me the juice. Come on. Give me the juice.
No, it was just really fun. I mean, we had the big opening theme of Permissionless was the why are we here speech from Voorhees, and which is a thing I ask myself from time to time with crypto. I'm sometimes actually not sure why I'm here. Am I here for the money? Is there something here? It's like this ongoing debate in my head. But I know I'm here for the pod, and that was like very, clear hanging out at the house. We just had some great talks, just sitting around, having a drink, talking about everything. A lot of interesting political, philosophical discussions happening with very diverse viewpoints, and everybody was very civil. It's such a rare sight. It's just a common thread that people are just sort of
see that.
Thirsty to learn stuff and to explore truth, which is really cool.
I mean, I had plenty of conversations with people, but I also just happened to walk into conversations, and I think the one common thing was that people were going deep in some of these conversations. You'd walk into a conversation and be like, "Whoa, we're reconsidering society and how to run civilization," or you're deep in an investment, and it was. You would have loved it.
That's so good.
And I know you were already impressed with everyone you met at Eat Denver.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Very
hired
impressed.
one as a CTO and co-founder, so that's a good vote of confidence. But man, everyone I met was just so unique in their perspective, but also in what they do in their day-to-day life. Crazy smart, strong perspective.
Yeah.
And I mean, I loved every part of it.
Yeah, I don't think people know that, by the way, that one of the listeners of this pod became the CTO of Steno.
Yeah.
That's the type of people that are in this community.
How often can you get 10 strangers who met on the internet to go in a house and it go swimmingly and
It's totally fine.
It was great.
Yeah.
Everybody's cool. Everybody I've ever met from this pod has been super cool.
Yeah.
I keep worrying that one day, it's going to be
Quality control
but it never happens.
It'll be someone's job.
But no, man, I mean, lots of fun conversations. We had shared a lot of meals together, so it was a lot of fun. I wish you guys were there.
I want like one. Give me like one highlight moment. I want it just could be anything from the few days there, like a memory that stands out.
What do you got?
Like this is just too much of an overview. I want to go.
I don't want to
into
like.
one-
I have some funny stories, but I don't want to call anyone out. So
No, yeah.
I got the same thing in my
I was like, well, no, not that one, not that one.
Uh-oh. Is this one of those what happens at permissionless moments?
I mean, nothing bad. Just
No,
you know, enjoying the time,
Okay.
enjoying everything.
I wanted to play pickleball when I was there, and I
Okay,
didn't
so
have a
did
game.
that happen?
So I searched pickleball permissionless on Twitter, and just to see if anybody was talking about it, and I found these. It was just one guy on Twitter who was trying to set up a game, and I DM'd him, and I ended up going and playing with these three random dudes who I had not previously met, and they were super cool, and yeah, we had a good time and played.
Really?
And, yeah,
So
I
you
think
got
we're
some
gonna try
pickling.
to try to make it a thing, like a more formal thing next time. It's such a nice like social
I mean,
like activity.
I'll give you another example. I had so many
Adam
of these.
thinks you should name one of these people and put someone on blast. So
I won't put any bad things on blast, but I'll give you an example of like a warm-hearted moment that I had so many times. So Feech, we were trying to like, hey, we're at the
I
Bankless
really
meetup.
want to meet Feech.
Come hang up, and finally got to meet him, and it was just like he just opened his arms, like, come here, give me the hug.
That's
He
great.
gave Steven a hug, gave me a hug. It was like, yes, it's time. embrace
That's
each other.
great.
Yeah.
That's so
So
good.
we had a lot of those moments because
man.
you chat with people and get to hear their perspective, and then you meet
There's
them.
no
in person.
roast? People want to roast?
No roast.
All right.
No roast
No
today.
roast.
I'm not
That's
in a roasting
good.
mood.
I
I
feel
will
like
say that Below really likes Tim Urban.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do too.
It was amazing. He basically
he's
had
phenomenal.
every time we had a conversation, he had like these like PowerPoint slides just queued up on his phone. He's like, "Funny you bring that up. Actually, this is from page 35 of the book. You'll see this chart here.
We should do more of Tim Urban stuff for the meaning side of our
yeah.
conversation.
Well, I think we're gonna
That
do
was
it in
the
the
first
in the
time.
book club
I can't
next.
believe it. I
hope.
mean, I guess we did simulation theory, which he's talked about a little bit, but it's more the meaning stuff in life that he covers. And
For sure.
It's like perfect for us.
Yeah.
Best
Yeah.
blog on the internet.
we should do that more.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into a little money making stuff we learned from Permissionless. Like, and I think we're gonna. Yeah, people are laughing in the chat about what we're saying.
There's a mini roast.
It's a kind of mini roast, a lovable
It's a
roast.
lovable roast.
Yeah.
I love the passion. Like I could see he was like so passionate and like and he
He
was
was like,
true
it's
to-
not about what you think, it's how you think. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And he just had it dialed in.
They are good ideas though. To be fair, I think they're. Good
I think
ideas
he.
as well.
I think.
I love the way he thinks.
Yeah,
I
I
got
do-
to hang
I
out
do
with him in
too.
person when he came to San Diego, and I think that's exactly how we think.
Totally.
Yeah.
So let's bring up a few of these investable ideas. Like I wrote down a few. We heard a few. We'll get into the Eric Voorhees stuff later. But like I'll name a few things that like I heard that was interesting. The big one was for me is the real world assets kind of narrative. So Robert Leshner, he founded Compound, kind of like a lending and borrowing protocol, popular. He in his talk he said, I hate to break the news to you guys, but the institutions are not coming. They're not coming to buy your coins. They're not coming to buy ETH and Link and all your tokens.
Wait, I thought they are coming.
Yeah, I know. That's what we were promised.
What do you mean?
But he said they're coming to bring their assets, their boring TradFi assets, and put them in DeFi so they can enhance them. And so this is kind of like one of the
They're
big
not
narratives.
Going to, I guess, the institutions themselves.
Yeah.
With their assets. But what about their ability to bring new money?
Right.
To
So
the
right
market?
now it's what? It's ETH, it's wrapped Bitcoin, it's a few other tokens, and then stable coins. He's like, they want to bring bonds, probably the most likely to come up, like treasuries and T-bills, but stocks, currencies, commodities, real estate, loans, derivatives, and they want to put in DeFi so they can enhance the yield. They like the features of DeFi, but they don't necessarily want to use Bitcoin and ETH. They want to maybe put a T-bill in there and use that as collateral in DeFi. And so it's just a way for them to upgrade the assets. And so that was his argument. And right now we see kind of like Maker taking money on chain and then investing it off chain, right? That's a good example of like the money on chain flowing off. But the big opportunity is hopefully those assets come on chain. And Van Spencer is saying, he thinks in the next like 18 to 24 months, like, I don't know, $100 billion worth of assets, most likely starting with the most boring, like treasuries, because the yields are so high, coming on first. And there's kind of a lot to deal with there. They acknowledge the difficulties, right? Because you don't just want on-chain to be a receipt of what's happening off-chain, right? That's not necessarily that good, but you kind of want the custody, the clearing, the settlement, the compliance, the reporting on-chain as well, so that's the primacy of where these transactions take place. And I heard an analogy like, with DocuSign, we got used to a digital signature becoming a legal transaction. Mm-hmm. Well, we need to get to the point where a digital signature on chain constitutes a financial transaction.
Oh, okay.
And so there's issues with that. Like the oracles are kind of a tough thing.
I love that, by the way.
Yeah, I like that too. It's a good analogy. With bond prices, probably not so hard to get a good price oracle. But like if you talk about real estate, that transactionally a couple of years, that's kind of tough to find like a price oracle for that kind of stuff. So anyway, that was interesting. And that was their like, hey, here's the multi-trillion dollar, hundreds of trillions of dollars opportunity. So that was interesting. I also heard a different take on the real world assets, which I kind of like. Instead of the token representing that you own the asset, what might be more compelling and what might pop up first is synthetic assets. So I forget the speaker, but he kind of brought up this use case of, let's say you want to go long Boston real estate and short San Francisco real estate, right? You will just be able to use price oracles to create a derivative, a perp essentially for these real world assets without actually owning them, because owning real estate has a ton of carrying costs. It's difficult, it's clunky, it's expensive, but you might be able to trade these assets in a different way, in a unique way, in a new financial product that has never existed before, by taking these price oracles and bring them on in a synthetic way. So I heard two different things, tokenization of actually, showing that you own the asset, and then a synthetic way. I don't know. You probably heard a lot of real world asset talk at the conference. Anything stick out to you in particular?
I don't know. I mean, we've been talking about real world assets for a while now. It seems like obviously Maker's been doing their thing for a bit, buying the treasuries, and Robert Leshner started. He initially had started the sort of like institutional compound or whatever, and that didn't really go anywhere, so sort of pivoted to the real world assets. And I think it's like an interesting thing, the idea of bringing T-bills on chain, because it's just like the biggest like pool of collateral that exists in the planet, probably. I don't know, I'm speculating, but it's an enormous market, right?
Right.
And you can imagine how crypto would be very different if we had like an extra $100 billion of collateral just lying around on chain for people to sort of do things with. You can borrow against it and buy things and do all sorts of interesting stuff. So, pretty bullish on that happening. I think the question is like, how do you play this as an investor?
Right.
The thing that's been on my radar recently, due to some conversations I've been having with people, is like, you guys remember Kanto?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't they becoming an L2 on Ethereum?
I don't know if they're going to Ethereum. I feel like they should. I don't know if that's, but I know that Scott Lewis is the main guy kind of behind it, and he's been bullish and like kind of pounding the table on the real world asset thing for a while, and kind of wants that to make the thing of what that is. So I think like if you want to put a little chunk of your portfolio in that for some exposure to it, might be kind of an interesting play. Chart's been pretty down only since that mega run up in the spring, but like it's been going a little bit sideways lately, and you can farm it. Last I checked, you could farm a liquidity pool of Kanto and the native stablecoin note, like 70% APY or something. So going sideways is a pretty good thing if it can kind of keep going sideways. So something I used to have like a pretty big bag of it that I farmed last year, and I'm probably going to be buying some more now.
I mean, isn't the best investable case for bringing real world assets just buying ETH? Because it seems like if you bring, $1 trillion, even hundreds of billions of dollars of real world assets on chain, you look at what eats up gas now. It's just transfers, stablecoin transfers. Like those will burn ETH, and it'll bring a lot of people. It'll make the network grow larger. So do you think that's a valid argument?
You're not investing in RWAs if you invest in ETH. You're just investing in ETH. Like if you want to invest in,
but that's part of ETH's trajectory, I would hope.
Yeah, a little bit, I guess, but it's kind of become like this like catch-all where it's just for like, we're like, we don't need to invest in any sort of narratives. We just invest in ETH, and ETH is everything, and it goes up. And that's probably like mostly directionally correct. But like if you want to gain excess returns, right, in crypto, then I think you kind of focus that a little bit. I don't know of any other good plays for it. I mean, Maker has been like a really good coin, and I've bought none of it, all year. I don't know if there's still juice left in that, maybe. But Kanto is interesting. Adam in the chat actually just said that Kanto is moving to Ethereum, so that's super cool. Kind of makes me want to get a bag a little more, because I just am not like a big Cosmos fan. And
yeah, there was a few L1 specific talks. There was a great one with I think the founder of Optimism kind of representing Ethereum. They had Cosmos and Solana represented, and Cosmos did kind of like say, if this DYDX transition doesn't go well, it's kind of not a good look.
I mean, I've been like, me, I've been like on Adam forever. I know we have wrecked him in the Discord. He's always trying to show it to me, but I've never really gotten it. And everything I observe, it doesn't seem to be where the market is going. So I don't have a bag. I don't have any plans on buying a bag. What was interesting about that chat, where you had all of these different L1 people together talking, was like, there seems to be this like actual conversation happening between these different iterations of how to build stuff, and like a problem with optimism, right? Is like, they're like, okay, well, how is value going to accrue to this token, right? And then Cosmos is like, yeah, we know a thing or two about that. Let's talk about that. And then like, so there's this kind of conversation happening where all the problems of all the chains are starting to converge to the same thing, and then people are kind of sharing that how they're approaching this. Like Solana's talking to people on ETH, and vice versa. So that's kind of cool to see. Yeah, and like, I like to see the collaboration, even in like a bear market where like everybody could be just like really at each other's throats.
Yeah. Speaking about optimism, like I heard some good pro and con arguments that I thought were worth sharing. Yeah, in an investor panel,
how many talks did you guys do?
How many talks did we listen to?
Mm-hmm. Probably
I don't know,
7 or 8 of them.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
probably about right.
That's a lot.
Yeah, there was definitely some solid ones. You could have listened to the live stream, by the way. I wish I would have known that beforehand. I mean, not that it would have changed me going or not, but still, it'd been nice to know that you could just go on the website, put in your email, and get a live stream of all the talks if you wanted to. But the argument for L2s was that in the long run, these layer 2s, they maintain the relationship with the developers. They maintain the relationship with you if you onboard your ETH or any of your money to kind of play games on the layer 2. And they said, in the long run, they have the bargaining power. So if they ever wanted to, and I don't think any of the ones that we know of now would do this, but any winning one would have the opportunity to potentially create their own L1, like, because they own the relationship, right? So that was an interesting argument I hadn't really heard before. Another one kind of against it was just that after some of these EIP upgrades, where the fees on layer 2s will go down by 90%, the amount of transactions these guys are going to have to do every day is astronomical to just have, not that we're at the stage where we're grading crypto on fundamentals, but to make $10-20 million a year in profit as a protocol, like it's astronomical how many transactions they're gonna have to do, hundreds of millions. So, that was some cases against that I
really
haven't heard.
Understood that argument, because I feel like as the cost goes down, you sort of unlock new use cases and you unlock new demand. Like there's stuff you can't do at $1 a transaction that you can do at 10 cents a transaction, and there's stuff you can't do at 10 cent that you can do at like sub a penny. So I feel like the marketplace of technology, like it just like always takes advantage of like this like additional throughput and uses it, and like that's a pattern we've seen play out in everything that we can think of, from like computer processing to hard drive space to I don't know, maybe it's the same thing now with like GPUs and AI. Maybe that's another thing that's just going to expand to sort of fill the room. So
I think it is. It's tough to comprehend because it's almost like this behavioral bias to imagine doing 2 or 3 orders of magnitudes of transactions per day is hard to make the human brain like make the leap there. But we'll just see how it progresses, and I think it'll be more obvious as we go along.
Yeah, it's like when we couldn't like imagine needing to use more than like 64 kilobytes of RAM.
Right.
Now you got like.
Why would you shop online when you go to a mall?
Yeah, it's just the same thing. What I saw a video on the going around Twitter of like the debut of the credit card at like a Burger King in the early 90s. I didn't realize
I saw
it
that.
was
that fascinating.
recent, by the way. And then just like hearing people talk about the credit card and like, I don't see why. I think it's just a bad idea if you're going to put a burger on a credit card, and like nobody's going to do that. And it's kind of funny to look back on.
Question.
Yeah.
So, like, remember, like, when I used to go, you still go to, like, Affiliate Summit.
Yeah.
And, like, every time you go, there's always, like, 1 to 3 pieces of, like, alpha.
Like real
one
nuggets.
time, like, you got a piece of alpha that literally led to the creation of a new company that you created. So, was there one? And if not, like, do you think it's just because of the signs of the times and the market that we're in, and everyone's just like, the why are we here discussion was the more important discussion?
Yeah.
I
mean, that's tough because like, they're creating these panels, they're creating the content based upon what's kind of being broadly talked about.
Right.
Right. So, there wasn't like a lot of setup for, hey, here's some new stuff. It's like, here's what's kind of been going on. But I do think the investor panel with Van Spencer, he did have some, kind of solid perspectives about just more on ETH. I heard a lot about staying away from L1, staying even from kind of DeFi 101. Like he was talking about how the fang of DeFi is already here. Like, don't play with Uniswap competitors, Maker competitors, like stay away from those. But I don't know. I didn't really find any like this token right now must buy.
I got a lot of value out of the there's a good talk with Koopa Troopa on music and NFTs, music, on-chain music.
Yeah,
which I thought was super interesting. They had this artist up there who had been releasing tracks on chain, and he was just going through the economics of putting a song out on Spotify, talking about how it's like 6 months maybe sometimes to release something. Talked about how like some of these record do we call them record companies anymore? Probably not. These music label contracts, right? They give you like 100K, right, and take like they'll give you like 20 cents on the dollar or something. But
just
then
like the book publishing.
But then they'll
world.
also have like a pref where they have to have like a 5x on their capital, so you don't even start getting anything until they get like 500K, and they're just making just tiny fractions of a penny, and then your earnings per user on Spotify are like tiny, right?
Yeah.
But your earnings per fan in crypto are like enormous, right? Because you had like he was talking about this experience of dropping like a track as sort of like an NFT as like on chain music, right? And like somebody came in and they were like, "Oh, this is really cool. I want to buy this. I'm the first person to buy this song. Here's 0.1 ETH or whatever.
Sick.
Just insane amount of money, right? That is so many hundreds of thousands or I don't even know how many plays on Spotify, right? So it's just flipping the business model on its head, where you can have a very small but like very intense fan base, and actually there's like a means to
it's beyond just like
monetize
music though. It's like really a better model for the creator economy. It's like the infrastructure that the creator economy needed to make it viable for it to become a lifestyle forever,
Especially
a
for the
lot
tail
of
end,
people.
right?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. And we're removing all of these, middlemen, if you will, and making it possible to I mean, I know Friendtech was a whole thing that we talked about, but
yeah, that's another thing. I mean,
like that is an example as well of like, I think the
Friendtech was probably my biggest takeaway from this conference. And
in
just
what
getting,
sense?
Just like I was just getting more into this idea, generally speaking, of how we could have this totally new interaction between creators and fans. And I also just very bullish on Friendtech itself. Like I really started to see Friendtech as like a farm, right? Like the best like, farm we've had in a while, right? Where I was like, oh, I could just buy shares of myself. Like I could dump like 50 ETH into myself, and it would probably be like extremely profitable just from the airdrop, right? So I'm like, okay, if you're actually using this thing and buying people and their shares are going up and you're getting the air, like, I don't know. I
you got to give Brett a shout out in the Discord.
Yeah, definitely a shout out to Brett, who I was out at the Bankless meetup, and I had a few drinks, right? I was talking to Brett about this, and he got me all pumped up. And I was like, all right, he's kind of been putting himself out there as like the Friendtech authority, right? And kind of building his following around that. So I'm like, all right, whatever, I'm gonna ape you. And I had it out on my phone, and he was like a half an ETH. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, you're $800. And I was like, whatever. And I clicked buy. And I woke up like 2 days later, he was like 1.6 ETH. So I was like, okay, well,
What?
That's
dope.
yeah. I mean,
That's great.
this is going to be like a really insane thing in bull
Wait, so
markets
it's not
because
dead?
of the. No, it actually after it was
deadness.
hated on in this episode, it went into an enormous bull. I saw people's portfolios that went up like 20 or 30x, right, in a matter of like weeks. It was actually like an enormous opportunity. We're in a lull right now, and it might kind of come down a bit. Like we talked about how there's this like kind of curve to it, right?
Yeah.
So when it goes up really fast, and when it goes down really fast, right? That's a feature and a bug. I could see that being like really addictive for people when there's like kind of a bull period, because you can buy somebody for 0.01 ETH or 0.015 ETH, and then they go up to 1 ETH like very, very quickly. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah, so you mentioned that as a feature. When we were talking at the airport as we were leaving, you kind of had some different thoughts on it. And I liked a few of your ideas. Like, I think it's more of a bug than a feature that it goes up so quickly, because you look at the top person, there's like 250 holders of it. So like, I just can't imagine it scaling when that person is, at 250 holders, you're at, I don't know, like something like $10,000, for the incremental user to join that. But you had a really good idea, and I've kind of noticed this as you kind of maintain key holders, there's no benefit to the creator to kind of maintain key holders. What they really want, how they earn, is that there's volatility, a lot of buying, trading around their keys. So it would be nice, and I think this is your idea of like almost like a yearly property tax. Like, I don't know if it's every week or every month, but like somehow the creator gets a different type of income stream rather than trading fees. It's based on people holding. So I don't know. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Well, there's a couple of things on that. I think you're thinking of it in terms of like, oh, this can't scale because you can only have 300 people in your chat, and then this thing goes to the moon, and then nobody can get in. But I think it's made from the perspective of what's that law that like the law of like the number of connections you can have, where it's like 110 or something. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I feel like you know that.
I don't know the name, but it's about 180 or something.
It's like you have 180 connections. I think that's what it's built from, right? So they're like, okay, we're going to target 180 basically, because that's what you can maintain in like a chat thing, and then whatever the price of that is, like, so be it. And then the other mental model that Brett gave me was that, like, if you imagine this is, it's like Mark Cuban, right? And you want to ask a question to Mark Cuban. He's running a chat, and he answers all of the questions in his chat. So it's pretty valuable, right?
Yeah, it's called Dunbar's number.
Dunbar.
150.
Yeah. So if Mark Cuban is trading for $10,000 his key, right? and you were to buy him and sell him, right? You buy him, you ask a question, you get the question answered, you sell. Well, what is that really costing you? It's costing you a $500 fee to buy.
Yeah.
And it's costing you a $500 fee to sell. So if you just view it as an in and out, you're like, okay, I paid $1,000 to ask Mark Cuban a question. And you can kind of see how there's definitely a market for that in like a lot of areas where people would be, yeah, I'll pay $1,000 to have a conversation with this person.
Wait,
and
but
then just,
the out means you didn't pay. So what do you mean by that?
well, you have to buy the key for $10,000. You pay a $500, fee in.
Oh,
and then
the fee.
you sell.
I don't know how
There's
Friendtech
there's like a
works.
trend.
Got
It's basically a 10% cost to go in and out, right?
Oh,
so that's
you're
really
paying 10K.
yeah.
That's your fee.
Yeah. So if you think about it as that, and like this is a simplified way of people using the platform, and assuming it doesn't build new features and kind of.
I mean, Dan Martell, who we had on the pod, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was how he made his career. Like his winner was Clarity FM. And it was talk to influential thought leaders
Right.
and people and pay per minute with dollars, with fiat. And like Mark Cuban was the first like influencer on the platform. And you could talk to him for like however much it was, like $1,000 an hour. It was probably a lot more, but people did it. And it was huge. It was hugely successful. It's actually still around. It was acquired by startups.com or startups.something. This is just a new version of that.
So maybe it's that.
It's that,
But it's
with
more. I know it's more.
Okay, so there's a couple problems, right? The thing that Friendtech sort of solves is this problem of like discovery, right? I think a good analogy is let's assume this is like a stand-in for Patreon, right? Let's assume you're a creator and you get by on people, $30 a month or $5 a month or whatever your thing is for your work, right? And then you can kind of subsist off of that. Well, there's a couple problems with Patreon. One is that there's no discovery element of Patreon, right? You have to discover the person and then you use the Patreon, right? And then the other is that there's these like kind of like transaction fees, right? I think that what's good about something like Friendtech and this general idea of crypto social capital is that like it puts in this market-based discovery mechanism where you can kind of look at the price and be like, oh, there's something here. Like the market is giving me a signal with this price.
Yeah.
I think that if I were to build this product from scratch, I would have a hybrid of like the sort of Friendtech and the Patreon model. What this basically needs, and this would be a security, which is probably why somebody doesn't do it, right? But imagine like you have like Arman token, right? And imagine you're a creator on YouTube, and instead of Patreon, we just enroll and like auto subscribe USDC. And this is good because the person who wants to support you doesn't have to buy some key and like become like a trader, right? I don't want to do that. I just want to give you $10 a month.
Do people have their brand on it or only their name, like their individual self?
What?
On Friendtech.
On Friendtech, it's your Twitter account.
I just have this like aversion to like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a
I
thing.
don't like it.
But imagine this. Imagine you're taking the streaming payments, right? This is cool because like
It'd be cool if Alfalfa was on there, but having like Steven on there, like I don't know.
Could be on there, but it's also
I
like,
guess so could it?
yeah, we all logged into that one, and that's what we're using. Maybe I don't know.
Will it allow that?
I don't know.
Anyway, continue.
do we want to hear this?
Yeah.
No, no.
I guess we don't.
I'll just name a few other ideas that we heard. Like,
Wow.
we saw some.
Wow. Jesus. All right.
You want to go?
Sometimes
Move
it
on.
happens.
So there were some new ideas around the conference floor that I saw that, I don't know, kind of interesting. I saw this project called Panoptic. It was like perpetual options, which I still don't understand how that's possible. But it was basically like, if you want to provide liquidity to a pool, it's incredibly complicated, and you're actually technically just buying an option on the price of two assets. And I don't know, they had a nice little UI to set that up. I also saw something called Mean Finance, which was there's no easy way to kind of DCA into ETH on chain. You can do it in Coinbase and set up limit orders and whatnot, and time-based orders. But they had like a simple way to do it. The thing is, though, is like you're kind of putting your money in a smart contract and hoping that thing doesn't get hacked. So anyway, I saw a few of those. Those are new things.
Okay.
It wasn't like a nugget that I'm like, I went home and I was like, I got to try this.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, everything at Permissionless, like honestly, everything just pales in comparison to like the creators, the social token. I think everything else is just silly, but like that is such a big thing to me.
It popped up multiple times, like
Well,
in conversations.
It's just the hottest thing that there is. There's the only thing to latch on to right now. I mean,
yeah.
And nobody's thinking about it right now. Like nobody's thinking about collecting music NFTs right now.
It's understandable, and I just don't know that if this current iteration. I don't think we know this current iteration is not it. The current iteration is never.
I'm not talking about Frentech. I'm talking about like music NFTs, for example. Like nobody is really going out.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm saying too.
Yeah. But you can. I don't know. Like the analogy that really rang true to me was like, what if Billie Eilish released her stuff on this platform?
Yep.
A lot of people who are like, "Oh, I was one of the first 50 people to play Ocean Eyes," right?
What
if you were the first person to buy? What if you could have bought that, right? What would that? Imagine there were like 50 of those sold. What would that be worth right now? Probably a lot of money. So there's an incentive for people to kind of hunt out, seek out good music and buy it up, and then boost creators and give creators like discovery from like the marketplace instead of having to rely on these kind of third parties, either like a Spotify or like some sort of label.
What's the best platform to go do that? Was there like an obvious one to go do that?
I forgot the name of it. The guy on stage,
maybe Matt
was,
Metzler in the chat.
Yeah,
if you know of one, pop it in the chat because I know you're into it as well.
Yeah, super cool. So that's something I have my eye on going into the next bull for sure. I want to buy a few of them just from stuff I like, and you can enjoy like a music NFT, whereas like an animal cartoon, it's like,
yeah, if it goes down, then you're just enjoying.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else left from Permissionless that we should go over? I think we covered most of the main things.
We can talk about it forever, but
can I talk about my little DEGEN election bet?
Please.
Yeah.
Very curious about this. It's literally in the title. I want it.
Oh yeah, we did put it in the title. Biden's getting old. We don't say. And I started to notice a little drumbeat of his typical supporters, namely Washington Post, CNN. The articles started coming out like, hey, maybe he is a little too old.
Really?
They started attacking his policies. It wasn't bulletproof anymore, is basically what I'm saying. Start that going up. Notice Gavin Newsom on Meet the Press for quite a long interview. I noticed him do a CNN like almost like a 1 hour interview with them. And I'm like, this is interesting. And keep in mind, the Democratic primary ends sometime in March. So like, if there is ever going to be a passing of the baton, it kind of has to happen nowish.
Really?
Right? Because the guy's got to be able to raise money, establish like a platform and get going. Also at the same time, you see these polls leaked and being talked about that Kamala Harris is polling terribly against Trump. As if she ran, she would do horrendously.
It's not surprising.
Not surprising, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that it came up in traditional media and it's starting
like they also
talking about it, and you're
publish
like,
this.
This is interesting. And we've talked about this pod before.
Like
I think
showing the populace that hey, that's not an option for you.
yeah. So I think we've talked about that. Like, there's a possibility that like at some point Biden just says, you know what, fuck it, you're right. I'm gonna get trashed in a debate with Trump. I'm gonna call Newsom from the bench from the to come in and sub in for me. So I don't know. I woke up one morning and I went on Bovada and I saw the odds were 14-1 for Gavin to win the presidency. So I bet
to win
because I actually think if he became the Democratic,
that he would.
He actually can hold himself in a debate.
He's a coin flip. If you make it to the final stage, you're a coin flip.
This is nothing to say about his policies. I'm not caring about the policies. I'm talking about the bet. So he's 14-1 odds. I think that's pretty fucking good odds to take. So
it is.
I bet $750 to win $10,500. I thought about betting a lot more to make it a little more meaningful, but I thought it was a good, interesting risk return ratio. I checked the odds.
So what do you think the odds are that he gets announced? I agree with Steven that it's a coin flip if he wins the primary. What do you think the odds are he gets substituted in?
I don't know. That's the big one. Like
We don't know.
If
we have
he
some
wins,
indicators. You have these indicators.
yeah, I don't know. It just seems
Is
like
25% for you? Is
yeah,
it,
yeah,
Okay, so if
25%.
it's 25%,
What does that have to be to break even? Like
and it's
15%?
50%,
basically?
then that
Yeah.
means that that's exactly what I'm driving at. Is like, what is it? Because this seems like a good bet.
Well, yeah, I think if there's a 15% chance
That's your break
that
even.
Biden doesn't
Yeah.
run, then you're break even on the bet already.
Yeah, so 15% chance,
I
and
think
then if
it's
he has a
higher than
50%,
15.
if it's a coin flop against Trump, that's your break even on a 14-1. So if you think it's greater than a 15% chance that he becomes a Democratic nominee, it's a good bet.
I just don't know. We don't have enough indicators.
I did notice that.
But the press is a very good indicator.
Yeah, I mean, like the fact that
The press that
they're
is
pretty
left-leaning
coordinated generally,
is
right?
Very coordinated.
Yeah.
Very
You can see
coordinated.
it's like when you're trading and your price is going up, and then there's a little shift, and it starts making like lower highs. Like you're like, oh, it's been a shift in structure here. You see that in
Yeah.
the media. Like suddenly, they're getting the memos that are like, this is the talking point now, and then kind of paving the way. You always lead. You lead with the news. You make the public, open to a thing, and then it kind of
That's why they're kind of warming up the public for this possibility.
I think it's smart.
And I think
Love
it
the
comes
bet.
from two areas. It comes from the donor class, kind of grumblings about shit. Are we going to be able to beat Biden? And some polls have come out saying that it's not as a clear win as it was in the last election. Primarily because young voters have stated that, well, while they were happy to come out and vote in the last election to beat Trump, they're not that motivated anymore. And they didn't necessarily get their college loans absolved completely. And then you notice the Biden administration kind of acknowledged that like all of a sudden they come out with they're easing up regulations on weed. So I don't know. I see all these like little points of data pointing to Biden is not clear that he's necessarily going to win. And the the operatives and the donor class are, feeding these stories to the media that like, hey, we need to warm up the public for a potential swap. And I think it's way greater than 15%. Did notice before we started recording, the line moved on Newsom. Now instead of 14-1, it's 10-1.
Oh, I was in at 14.
I don't know. So like, is
Damn.
it so your break even is 20% odds?
I knew
on him?
14 was value. I feel like it's like 50, close to 50% that Biden ultimately doesn't.
All right, so
make it.
here's another take, and it kind of matches up with the 50-50 on the Newsom versus Trump. 5-1 odds that he becomes the Democratic primary, like becomes the nominee.
I like.
So it's still 20% break even. If you think the
20%.
odds are greater, I think if you just look at Newsom's Twitter feed and ask me if he's the governor of California or if he's running for
sounding
president
like
of the
he's
United
running for
States.
president.
And to me, his feed looks like he's running for
Interesting.
president of the United States. So anyway, I think that was a little fun little DEGEN bet to make. And I don't know, we got like more than a year.
I love a good
See-
trade.
See how it plays
I
out.
love a good trade. It's good risk reward.
I
right
mean,
there.
I believe that Biden has less than a 25% chance of beating Trump.
Who would you put
Hot take.
as behind Newsom for potentially?
I don't even think there is one.
Because there is one. There's one that's actually pretty close.
Oh wait.
I mean,
Oh, Michelle Obama.
Correct.
yeah. I mean, okay. So I don't think Gavin would beat Trump either. I actually think it's more like 40-60.
That Trump
is a
would
coin
beat
flip.
Gavin.
60-40 Trump. However, I believe Michelle Obama destroys Trump.
Maybe.
Destroys.
I would recommend
Like
watching
I think it's going to be a coin flip if it's Biden. Trump,
Sean
but-
Hannity.
I mean, if it's yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Sean Hannity interviewed Newsom, and I watched a little bit of it, and he actually held, verbally, like his ability to just make an argument on the spot and kind of try to win the argument. And again, not agreeing necessarily with his policies, but like he did okay with Hannity.
No. He's great. He's so you Newsom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's so presidential. He's a good-looking white guy. He's got all the check.
Yeah.
governor of California. No one outside of California is going to care about how he destroyed California. Like, it's fine. But Michelle is like a powerhouse. I mean, if you like look back and read about like the Obamas in general, like Michelle was the smart one that everyone thought was going to be like the future president when they were both in school together. Like, she would clean up, and she just has what I think. I mean, we know Biden will not be able to compete. He will not be able to debate, and she would, and she would just show how much of an asshole he is just by simply existing and standing there. It would be this like contrast of like, here's what a genuine, not again, she's not a perfect person. I don't know enough about her policies, but what she exudes is what Obama exuded, like what Barack exuded.
She'll
which was
try to
like
be like
a good
a little higher
person,
class, you know?
classy, and he would just come off like an asshole. And I think that maybe we've had enough of the assholes in government and
Trump would literally be
in
like,
society.
"You have a penis."
Oh my God, if he says that on air.
I mean, he'd say a lot of things, but
go-
He would.
Oh
if
yeah,
we
he'd go full
want to
nuclear.
find a person that can beat Trump, it's her. A better chance than Newsom.
You mentioned Newsom.
Marty said you mean Michael Obama.
Oh God. Oh God. I did not say that.
So you mentioned Newsom destroying, and all this will be my last point on this. We'll move on, but you mentioned Newsom destroying California, and in your mind, you think San Francisco, L.A., robberies, like in broad daylight with no consequence.
Yeah.
Gavin just rolled out like something like, I don't know, 200 million, maybe it was more, of money specifically to go after shoplifters. And he is funding the police. And I think it's timely that he's rolling this out, because that is going to be his biggest knock in a big time debate, a nationwide debate. Like how when this is going in the cities, you want to be our president. So anyway,
Mike can't be Trump.
Marty's.
I would smoke
Marty's
Trump.
killing
I would
him.
smoke Trump.
so Marty says, if based on biceps, Michelle might win. Mike Obama cannot destroy Trump. LOL. Oh God.
The
Arman
joke-
could beat Trump.
I'm
the
happy,
joke- the
I'm
joke
happy
here
to
is
take on
that,
Trump for the American people.
Yeah, Marty is very convinced in the politics channel that Michelle Obama is.
That's not even,
Michael.
Let's
All right.
just stop.
If you would like to debate Marty on this
Just
topic,
stop.
please
Yeah, please jump into
alfalfapod.com. Jump into the politics channel. We got some
Yeah.
interesting stuff going.
All right.
Ease animations. What's up?
Take me out of this space, Steven, and I don't know, lure me into like our last money topic.
All
Give me
right.
a DEGEN trade.
Oh, yeah, I
I don't
wanted to-
disagree with Marty that their whole life is a huge lie. I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying people don't care. People don't go as deep as Marty. People
Right.
look at the surface and they go, what a nice, happy family, and what a wonderful woman. And she's so polite, and she writes these books, and she talks to Oprah.
And she gardens.
And she's smart.
What
and she
happened to your
gardens,
chef, Michelle?
And-
what happened to your chef?
And
I didn't forget about that.
And she would probably beat Trump. Yeah. Anyway. It was
Anyway.
nice. We haven't done politics in a
Rescue
while.
me, Steven.
We haven't done any politics. That was interesting.
Anyways,
All
let's
right.
turn the car around here. Yeah, I had a, I had a bit of a DEGEN trade idea to match your DEGEN. I don't think your bet is actually that DEGEN, because I think it's just like a good bet.
Yeah.
But I was browsing the Twitters. I came across an interesting chart of Riot seasonality. Riot is the Bitcoin miner. What was it, Mara and Riot? Are there any other Bitcoin miners?
There are a few worst business models in the world, but yeah.
Yeah. So we've got a chart here of a Riot blockchain seasonality. You can pull that up onto the screen. This is super interesting because this thing does nothing basically all year. And then like November, December, massive volatility. Just massive volatility. I think this is over like a 7 or 8 year
Is
period.
this measuring an increase or volatility?
I think it's just like an increase
Okay,
basically,
okay.
which is synonymous basically.
Yeah.
But yeah. So if you pull up a chart now of Riot, if you pull up the chart of Riot or any other miner, they have like some interesting properties. the first one you notice if you pull up Jordan, can you pull up the chart?
Pull up the other one.
No, the trading view chart.
Trading view.
Is that on there? Oh, is it just on delay on the TV? Yeah, you had it up there. There it is. Yep, there it is. Up. Yep.
Up.
Well,
Where'd it
you
go?
had it. You had it. Yeah. Okay, sweet. Thank you. So if you look at a chart of a miner, you see some interesting properties. Like the one thing you notice if you sort of zoom out is that if you held this thing all the way down, all the way up, all the way down, you have endured some pain. I think this thing bottomed at like under $1, like 90 cents or something in the last pair, and then went up to like, I think it went over $100. So it did like 100 to 1 or something insane from, close to it from top to bottom, maybe even more. I annotated the percentage gains on there. It might have been like 120 to 1 from top to bottom. So that part is really cool. What's not really cool is that it didn't even do a 2x from this cycle's top to last cycle's top. So the payoff profile of these reminds me of, have you ever traded like the leveraged ETFs or like 3x S&P?
Yeah.
So if you catch them during like the leg where they're moving, they give you like a great return. But if you hold them for long periods of time, you get that vol decay and you end up just kind of underperforming. So same thing here. It's not necessarily something that you want to put in your portfolio and hold forever. But it's super interesting, I think, like if you want to bet on like a Bitcoin ETF play, you're like, I want to bet on Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is kind of boring because, doing a 3X is just not cool for me. Like I'm used to trading meme coins or whatever. So if you combine that with like the seasonality thing, the idea that November, December, we sometimes get these big moves. I think we might get a big move in Q4. I'm hopeful we might get a big move. So playing the miners is actually kind of an interesting way to play that. And you can see that we've done like a huge multiple off the bottom, compared to, I think we've done like a 5x off the bottom versus like less than a 2x for Bitcoin. And if you want to juice this further, what you can do is you can play calls. So you take the miners, you get the additional vol, and then you do the calls of the miner instead of buying the underlying. And if you want to really get exposure to the vol, like you want to be playing leaps. I think leaps have like greater exposure to the volatility.
Explain what a leap is,
component.
or just give an example of what.
Yeah, like a leap is just an option that's like long dated in the future, like a year out or so.
Okay.
I don't know if there's full leaps on, or if they have a lot of volume, but there are April calls you could buy for Riot. You can see that I have a little chart of volatility on the bottom there, and we've spiked to like over 200 in the past. Implied vol right now for these contracts I think is like 90, 100. So if we do get a huge explosion to the upside with like an ETF or something, not only is the option contract going to go way up because of the delta of the price. But also if vol doubles again, that's also going to push price way up.
So let me be clear, because like we've been clear on this podcast that we don't believe in like the halvening cycles. That is not what has moved price. It just so coincidentally in the last two cycles have moved up with liquidity and more monetary policy things. You're saying that like we've seen some seasonality in Riot and you're willing to bet on it because it has so much upside, or because maybe there's an ETF and if the ETF goes up, that's the trigger point? Or are you saying forget the ETF, there's no trigger point, it's just that like this thing has occurred so many times, so like low cost,
it's
low
similar
cost,
to
high
me
reward?
to your Newsom bet, right?
Okay.
Do you think Newsom's going to win? No.
Right.
But you're getting 14 to 1, right? So I have this like higher macro thesis that we're going to have pain in the coming weeks, months, right? We talked about the dollar on this show, I think a few weeks ago, where I said dollar is probably going to $1.06, $1.07, $1.08. Dollar looks up only. Dollar has been up only. Stocks look bad right now. They look very bearish. We broke weekly structure on the NASDAQ. It looks like we're dollars going up. It looks like stocks are going down. The crypto charts look really bad also in like a short, medium term time horizon, right? So if you get this point of time in like October, right, where things are looking bleak again and Bitcoin's at 20K and the dollar's at $1.07 and everybody's like panicking again, And that might be one of those times where you're like,
Take a flyer.
yeah, like you may be getting like a 10-to-1 payout profile on something like this, or even higher depending on the exact strike price you use. It could be an interesting way to play like some sort of like peak panic porn moment. And with options, you know, the good thing about them is you can't lose more than you buy, and you probably should treat it as like a zero if you're going to do that play.
Right.
But it's like an interesting kind of lottery ticket to me, where you're probably going to be, I think, plus EV. And if you can kind of stomach losing your money most of the time with like a really nice payoff profile, it's like kind of an interesting potential play to me. I'm not in the trade right now. Like I said, I do think we are going to go lower ultimately, but
You just put it on our radar.
yeah, I'm planning the additional like kind of deployment of the last scraps of capital I have. I'm planning like additional kind of like trades, whether that be like options or futures or something, on top of the spot, and that's kind of one of the things I'm looking at.
Yeah, and if I remember last cycle correctly, the miners had higher beta like than just Bitcoin price. So I could see how it would work, and that seems interesting.
Yeah, as long as you're catching the leg up and you're not riding the leg down, it's great.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
once you ride the leg down, you give it all back and more. Like I think Riot went down 95% from peak to trough, which is a lot worse than Bitcoin.
All right. Well, we're gonna need to invoke Eric when he comes back, because I think this trade will still be available.
We'll get Eric's
So
take
when he
on
comes
it.
back,
I
we'll
look
get our
forward
little
to that.
options corner with Eric, and get his input on it for sure. All right. So where do we want to go from here? We could talk about the Bill Gurley talk or the Eric Voorhees talk first.
Bill Gurley.
Okay. Let's fucking do it. So
Arman has
We already
spoken.
talked about the Eric talk.
yeah, we did talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Did we?
There's more to
Yeah.
talk on it, but we could weave it at the end if it's there.
Weave it back if you want.
So Bill Gurley, he's a legendary venture capitalist, been in Silicon Valley for decades, tremendous returns. Also kind of a straight shooter you get from this talk. So let me give you an example of how he frames this regulatory capture argument. So he talks about a startup he invested in that's going to give free Wi-Fi to all of the citizens, right? And he tries to get, an ear of like a congressman, because he knows that it's going to require some legislation, or just he needs to talk to regulators about this. And, he talks about the story of calling up someone in DC, and he's like, all right, I found the guy you need to talk to. And over a course of weeks, the lawyer tells him, well, you can't just meet with them. You're going to need like $5,000 per person. And he's like, all right, I got six people, $5,000. I got $30,000 ready to donate. And then he goes on to tell him, well, you kind of need 10 to 12 people. And, if you get their spouses to donate, they don't even need to be there. But like, you need like a couple $100,000 to meet with this person. And he goes on to tell the story that not only does no citizens are like, we don't want free Wi-Fi, but somehow Verizon comes in, Comcast comes in, and they are writing the legislation for
Writing
Congress.
it directly.
Yeah, their lobbyists are the
Yes.
ones who are coming in, and these news articles at the time were citing commercial interest. They weren't citing citizens' like own public interest that, oh my God, what happened if we got free Wi-Fi? They were citing these lobbyists and making concerns about commercial interests, primarily the people who charge for this kind of shit. So anyway, it turns out that, these like little neighborhood level free Wi-Fi gets written out of law. He talks about this Communications Decency Act of 1996, which is supposed to spur on innovation and development of new telecommunications technologies. And he shows a chart after the legislation takes place. The big four like significantly increased their market share. So it did nothing of the sort.
Is
And
that like the Inflation Reduction Act?
yeah, Inflation Reduction Act. It
do
does
you
the
happen
opposite.
to have the quote from? No, it's okay if you don't.
I
Which
might
quote?
like. Is this the quote? As a rule,
Yes.
regulation is acquired by the industry and is designed and operated primarily for its benefit. Special interests is what spurs on, this legislation, and it supersedes public interests, which results in a net loss for society. Is that roughly the quote you were
Yes.
talking about?
Yes.
Right. And
It's a net loss for society,
right.
and the incumbents win.
And this is
The
the
incumbents win from regulatory capture, and it's really frustrating.
this is what he talks about. And you can just tell this podcast, he's not talking about venture capital. He's just talking
No.
about he's He's a citizen. He's pissed off, and he's seeing all these
Can
examples.
I just say one of my favorite, like, just more, this has nothing to do with the contents of the talk, but rather about the talk itself. So a little bit meta. The talk was very good.
Yes.
And if you haven't seen it and you're watching or listening, you should go watch it. It's on YouTube. Bill Gurley
It's like-
at the All In Summit.
Yeah, it was great. Very
And the
charismatic.
reason that the talk is good, my initial reaction, I love stuff like this. Like, I love the arts, I love movies, I love talks, I love to look and examine like why something is effective. And my initial reaction to why it's so effective is because he says himself in the post talk that he spent 15 years thinking about this, maybe even longer. And one of the things about great talks is that if it's driven with like emotional undertones, they're better. Like, you can just watch him talking the whole time, and he's memorized it for the most part because he's been thinking about it and obsessing over the details of it. He even mentioned like keeping a journal with little anecdote examples every day. And in fact, the day before he gave the talk, he added one last example. So you could just see, like, that's what the process is of like giving a great, convincing, memorable, entertaining talk. And he would have these moments where he's so comfortable with the talk that he could engage with the audience. He could drop an F-bomb. He could not look at his teleprompter and know exactly what he was going to do. But the deep-rooted, like, emotion that was consistent throughout the whole thing for him is anger.
Yeah.
He was just pissed off.
Frustrated.
Like, that frustration creates, I think, a wonderful talk. And frustration and anger creates change. And so it was really powerful, just like an overall observation.
I was mad listening to it. Like, I was listening to that, and I was just mad. Like,
It's impossible not to be.
The free Wi-Fi thing was upsetting, but the stuff with the COVID tests was...
Dude, fucking
So he talks about how... you guys probably remember going to buy...
Remember the line where he's like, the U.S. government should have just bought them from Germany.
Oh, yeah.
Bought them off the shelves in Germany. What
Bought
are they
them
gonna
off
do?
the shelf.
You guys remember buying COVID tests for like $30 a pop or whatever
Yeah.
dumb thing, and so in the speech he's like, yeah, these things they're commoditized. Like, they're selling them in Germany for like sub $1.
And then the way that the way that publication was like making it sound like we've created some new, really fun, sexy COVID test that's like so cute, and it's a little bundle, and you just stick it up your nose, and it'll give
He's
you a
like, they
result. And it's, like,
over-engineered the
overpackaged,
shit out of it.
over-engineered.
Yeah, but these-
We've already had the technology for like so long.
These
Yeah,
these
it was
bastards, they just like gave their 3 buddies the right to sell the only tests.
Yes.
They made them all the exact same price, or like $29.99.
All former board members of these companies. Those are the companies that won.
It's just so egregious, right? You're raking the general populace over the coals financially, right? But then also you're professing to like really care about stopping COVID. You think that people are going to maybe not buy the test because they're $30 instead of $1? You think that's going to cause problems too?
Right.
And then he also like pointed out the thing with like the health insurance company.
Yes.
Or there's a medical
software.
practice software. Yeah.
Yeah, where this frickin' woman like lobbied to get a provision put into Obama's Healthcare Act that gave doctors like $50,000 for buying a piece of software.
If they worked software
Yes.
into their stack. At all.
The requirements for the
40K.
software had specific things that only applied to this version of software.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, they were like, well, we got to make sure they're using the software, not just buying it. They gave them like an additional huge
17
chunk
grand.
of money on top of it to prove that they were using it. And then they went in and they like enforced like the law on all of the competitors because they were trying to market the product and it didn't have like all of the exact feature sets. And then we're sitting here like, oh god, why is it so expensive to go to the freaking doctor? Why is it like I don't know. Like
You can't even get an appointment anymore.
Yeah, he
first of all.
gave other examples like the dog Frank bill, like in
Yep.
response to the great financial crisis about, that the regulation was around banks, and he shows the charts of how
Right.
many new banks have started. And it literally looks like zero
No,
since
it's insane.
2009.
And I don't know where you wanted to take this, Nick, but like the part that freaked me out the most was the discussions around tech and AI. So like the
Yeah.
benefit
This is
of
a great
tech,
place to go.
This, like
Yeah,
the
let's
benefit,
go
like
there.
this is where I want to go because like the like he ends the talk by saying like one of the greatest things about tech is that we're 3,000 miles away from Washington D.C. Like thank God, like that is part of the reason we've been able to avoid more regulatory capture than necessary. But he also started to point to these anecdotal examples of like Mark Zuckerberg and Sam Altman.
He wants, needs, and
cozying
must
up.
have regulation.
Well,
knowing like,
knowing that
Please regulate me.
they want to be regulated because they are the winners currently. They are at the top. They have the advantage. And if you have the advantage, history shows that you will benefit from regulation. And so they're there, they're cozying up. They're like, there's this nice young man, Sam Altman, and he's just like, such a
So
good
nice.
boy. And he's telling us
Just
to
wants regulation.
regulate him and wants to form a special council and all
Wow,
these
how
things.
nice
It's
of
like,
him.
what a nice boy.
he said he'll even write the laws for
Yeah,
us.
he'll tell us everything. He'll show us under the hood and everything. Why? And what I worry about is I think that if you look at the industries that are most impacted, as citizens, we are royally fucked in those departments. Education, healthcare.
Yeah.
I mean,
I wrote these
oil and
down.
gas, like, please.
Yeah,
like,
so
we're
he
fucked in
showed that
those
like
departments.
voters don't care about some of these tech issues right now. They don't care. What they care about is the most regulated industry where regulatory capture exists. So you already
Yes.
mentioned healthcare, pharmaceutical companies, the drugs they buy, insurance, how much gas costs, education, buying a home, getting a mortgage. Those were at the top of
Yes.
voters' concerns, the ones with the most regulation. What's not on their concerns is tech.
No, but
like-
the media likes to paint tech as the problem, but it's not the problem.
Right, and he argues, Bill Gurley argues, like, no wonder why,
Yes,
like
no
these
wonder.
senators in both sides of the aisle want to regulate them because they see money.
There's
in it.
money.
Yeah,
There's so much money.
and
It's
Senator Warren, and
unbelievable.
we've mentioned Senator Warren on this podcast, and I think we mentioned it kind of in the context of regulatory capture because she's going after these crypto companies, but you're like, okay, you want individuals to have the ability to have financial freedom and access to things. Well, this provides it. So I forget what we gave the three options to name her. She's not dumb.
Yeah, we did a whole
She's not
early
ignorant.
episode
It was
on
like
her.
dumb, ignorant, or disingenuous.
Yeah.
And like we landed on disingenuous because she's not dumb. She knows these things exist, but I think she's very aware that if she's the one to regulate them, guess where the money's going to come from? It might come from Coinbase. It might come from these new companies potentially lobbying her to back off.
But
And
listen,
same
this
thing
is
with like
this
AI.
is a huge concern. Like, this is not a small matter. Like, do you really want the government governing like software? Software is so cheap, so accessible, so powerful, so ubiquitous, available to all, solving so many problems for so many individual workers, prosumers, knowledge workers. I mean, it makes everyone's life, enterprise level, mid-market level. If you have the government involved in software, you're going to feel a lot of pain, like a lot of pain, and all of the things, and he ends with Matt Ridley, which is the rational optimist, which you and I actually debated this a little bit, Stephen. Like, I believe in technology as a critical component of making the future better. And what's necessary is not just technology, but access to it and the ability to continue to innovate. And if we get involved, if the government gets involved at that level of infrastructure, I mean, we're going to lose everything that has made society better for the most part over these last, decades in particular.
And he talks about
And,
why.
and we're here in the middle of the most critical, by the way, moment of AI. Like, we're having this Cambrian explosion. Everyone likes to talk about this poetic way of generative AI, like Cambrian explosion of innovation, like the world, like everything, the last 2 decades of mobile, the last 5 decades of innovation, all collapsing on this one moment of time where so much is possible. And then we're all of a sudden going to volunteer to have it regulated. On the one hand, honestly, what was really illuminating about this talk was before I was like, yes, AI is very dangerous. We need to get involved. We need government intervention. We need that. But on the other hand, when you listen to Bill Gurley and you start to really think about this, like, is that a net positive for society, for citizens? I don't think so. I really don't think so. And the most important thing, which is really important and something that I deal with on a daily basis, these open source models are phenomenal. They're phenomenal. There's a new one that came out just like literally a week ago that is better than GPT 3.5, almost as good as GPT 4. And it's pushing Llama now to be like, okay, we need to push and we need to make Llama 3 better than ever. It's like Falcon 180 or something like that. I forget the name.
Who released it?
Huh?
Do you know who released it?
Yeah, it's like Falcon 180 or something.
Oh, that's the
yeah.
Okay.
And it's like this open source model that it's a large language model that you can go and commercially build your next product software on. And like, what is Google saying? What is OpenAI saying? No, not good. We don't like
Dangerous.
that. Dangerous, not good, because it'll be out in the wild and it'll just take over. And like, I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, that is somewhat true, but where does the money flow and who benefits from that statement? And this is a convoluted topic, man.
Let's
like,
talk
there's
about
a
the
lot
money
going on.
in a second, but I think it's important to give people a concrete example where the pain comes from. So I think Facebook is a really good example. Like Mark Zuckerberg in front of Congress said, like, regulation will benefit Facebook the most because they're mostly talking about the content moderation of it. And because of the current laws and the ways that they kind of have this safe harbor where like it's user generated content, they don't need to moderate it. But let's say they did input some content moderation. Facebook can afford it. But every new startup to implement all the regulatory content moderation things they would have to keep up is too expensive, and it shoves down new startups from disrupting and new services and disrupts competition. So that's where the pain comes from, I think.
Is there anything more deflationary in our lives than software?
No.
It's like unbelievable. Like
No.
the fact, like just the set of
yet.
like Google tools that you can use for free would have cost like an incomprehensible amount of money in the 90s.
It's
and
not going to
just
look like
free.
that anymore.
It's not. Well,
if he's right.
Think about the stuff in our lives that is the most inflationary.
Right.
What comes to mind?
Healthcare, drugs,
Disaster.
home
Education,
prices,
education.
Home prices. What do all these things have in common? They have a very high level of government regulation or like government interjection of capital into a market. Like, think about the stuff in your life that you hate. Like, what is one of the products that we hate the most? Like, I would say my cable company.
Yep.
Freaking miserable. Well, guess what we did in the 90s? Like, we put in all these regulations with basically just like enshrine these incumbents, killed all the competition, and left the consumer with this like
by far the
shitty
biggest problem
experience.
in the United States, at least. And again, I know we're getting a little U.S. centric, but it's healthcare. And like a lot of people, I was just talking to one of my co-founders about this from Italy, and it's like, he's like, but you pay a lot of money. I'm like, yes, I pay $550 a month from personally, just one person in insurance. And he's like, so you can get a doctor appointment anytime, like tomorrow. I'm like, absolutely not. He's like, so it's the same as what I have, but mine's free.
fuck.
Like, what's the difference here? You know, it's like you're becoming Canada, you're becoming Europe. Like, you can't even get appointments anymore. What's the deal? So yeah, I mean, in the last few years, in particular, post-COVID, it's been hell.
Yeah, it's bad.
So can we talk about potential solutions a little bit? Because like I thought, in the Q&A section of Bill Gurley's talk, the first question is like, so what solves this? And he's like, well, I think transparency is like the first place I can go. He mentions a site called Open Secrets where you can see
I got to spend
who's
some
funding
time
who.
on this site.
It's I've been on it before, and
hadn't.
I don't know if it's as transparent as you would like it to be, but he's like, we have real-time trades of like NFTs or tokens or stocks. He said that should be the case for people who fund politicians. And Adam mentioned something in the chat that I think kind of like feeds into this, which is no one is more susceptible to lobbyist influence than freshman congressmen. And I think most people, and I think Adam understands this based on his comment, is the most common thing, what a freshman congressman spends the most amount of their time doing is raising money. Mm-hmm. I mean, all politicians do. That is where they spend most of their time. But freshman congressmen, holy fuck. I mean, they put them in a call box and be like, start dialing. I mean, they probably make more calls than Jordan does, when he's like cold calling. Like, I mean, they have to raise money. And you wonder why this politician is chairman of this committee, or why they're considered a new rising star of any party. It's because they fucking bring in the money. They're a rainmaker. And we saw Tom Emmer. I mean, he's a Republican whip, and I don't know how much money he raises, but I just saw him speak live, and I was like, man, that guy can raise money. I mean, he can get you motivated to just pull out your checkbook and be like, yeah, all crypto people should give Tom Emmer money. So I've mentioned this book before. It's called Republic Lost by Lawrence Lessig.
Lessig.
Yeah, and he frames the problem of money in politics. One of the problems is that you need money in order to stay in office, to become an elected official, to stay an elected official, and it's pervasive. It's not necessarily like direct corrupt, like quid pro quo, but as a politician, you have your citizenry, and it might be 1 million people, might be 300 million people, but the fact is, most of your ability to survive comes from less than 0.1% of them. We'll call them the donor class, and that's who your real customer is the donor class, where your money comes from to survive.
And if you don't please your customer,
yeah, you're going to have problems.
out.
Right. And so Bill Gurley gives a good example of like Elizabeth Warren. You would think that Alphabet and Facebook, Meta would go and fund her competitors, but no, they're some of her largest donors because she's the biggest threat. So why not get on her team? Right, in the long run, and it's just like incredibly frustrating that this exists, but it is kind of the state of our politics. That if you want to run a presidential campaign, you probably need $1 billion plus minimum.
It's like we a lot of Permissionless was about regulation, and a lot of actually the Alfalfa talks at Permissionless actually revolved around government and the nature. Like we talked about this a lot actually, and it's funny because I was on the other side of this discussion with one of the guys from Discord, Noah, I think, who is like very libertarian, right? And I was like, well, surely we need some regulation, right? Like I was like, we don't want to live in just complete anarchy and everything, and like I found myself like arguing for government intervention and stuff, like driver's licenses, or like not letting 7-year-olds buy guns at Walmart and various stuff, and I think in crypto, like we look at things, and I don't know, I know some people are still like, no, it's fine, just Wild West, we'll figure it out, but like I think we could use some framework, right? So like where do we draw that line? Right, between like doing something that's useful for the public,
well, the whole thing
and then
is
it
about
becomes
harm.
disruptive.
It's all about harm. Like libertarian ideas are beautiful. If you could live in a harmonious world where every action that an individual took did not come to the detriment greatly of other people, then you would say that's okay. But regulation is powerful and exists for the reason that when people think and behave selfishly and harm other people, somebody, a big daddy brother, has to step in and say, no, I think you're going too far. That's to the detriment of other people. If you were to extract capital or accumulate value in the market through that action, this could kill, injure, hurt, harm other people. And that's what it simply comes down to. Like, if we could live in a world where everyone actually behaved in a effective altruistic way, going back to that episode, then perhaps, right, that's a nice idea. But humans are, I believe, if I'm stating my case, are inherently good. But humans, when pushed and feel any sense of scarcity, are also inherently selfish because they have to be. So that's why we have it. And that's where the line should be.
Excuse me.
Well, I guess
and that line can move. As human beings evolve and become more likely to make better decisions, the line can move. It should not be fixed forever.
There's an embedded assumption in this, I think, that is where the problem lies. When I hear people who are left on the political spectrum talk about corporations a lot, I'd be like, oh, corporations are too powerful, blah 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 blah, we have to do something about them. There's a part of my brain that's like, yes, I agree, and then like, well, we need the government to, and then there's this built-in assumption that the government functions in the interest of the people, and that if you make the government bigger and more powerful, it will fight the corporations and help the people. But the twist, as we see here, and this is what regulatory capture is that the government doesn't work for the people. The corporations and the special interests, the powerful, they just capture the government and they sort of turn it on the people like a gun that's been like flipped in a sense. So
I used to believe that. I actually, literally, truly
used to
did.
believe
I
that.
used to believe that the government, the better and larger it was, it worked for me, and
Yeah.
the more that it took control, my life would improve. Obviously, that was naive,
It's the
but
biggest
it's something
flaw.
that a lot of people believe.
Yeah. And I think that is probably the root of the issue. It's not like, should we have regulation? It's
That's
what is
correct.
how is
That
the,
is the root of the issue.
The governing body, how does it function? And it doesn't function in a way that is good. And so like, I think the libertarians tend to be right. Not that they're right philosophically, but because when you look at just what reality is and how incentives work and how government functions, that is what happens. So maybe it is better to just have less of it, even if in an ideal world we would like to have a government that functioned properly and actually worked in the interest of people.
So, Bill Gurley talks about like a congressman who lamented about one of the pieces of legislation that he helped write and spearhead, that it did not have the effect that he wanted to. And he almost talked about this Hippocratic oath, like first do no harm. And it can,
Daniel Patrick Moynihan. Right?
yeah, it should almost be like first do no harm to the Bill of Rights, first do no harms to free speech and privacy and all the things that are in the first 10 amendments. But I really do think if you want to like shake this up, you have to root out the incentives for these politicians. They need money. And the fact is that the money comes from a very tiny fraction of the people they represent. And so, Lawrence Lessig in this book, he proposes, and I think something this audience will like, a more decentralized path to campaign finance to make the small group of donor class less deterministic about what these politicians do. And he proposes what's called a citizen voucher, citizen financed elections, in which everyone gets, let's call it like a $50 voucher. Every citizen. Let's just say, for the sake of the argument, it's for the presidential election. And there's some issues with that, right? Like, one, it's tax funded, and there could be like other public funds that match according to the donations. Maybe the pool left over for people who don't decide to direct their voucher goes proportionally to how people voted. But the fact is, this Supreme Court decision, Citizens United, still there. And it allows any group to spend money however they want. So the group of three of us, or group of four of us, Alfalfa, could just run commercials for Gavin Newsom. We don't know him. We don't talk to him. But like, that's technically, according to the Supreme Court, part of our free speech, to just run pro or against Newsom as we see fit. We can spend our money as a part of our free speech. So that prevents a pretty large hurdle, because this dark money, these large pools of money, will still be there. But if we can somehow, warp the incentives to make sure politicians are open to what their constituency wants, that's one way. He offers some wild other ways. The only other way to do this would be to literally invoke Article 5 of the Constitution and convene a convention to write an additional amendment, to change campaign finance laws. I don't know if that's possible, and it opens up, this huge opening for, once you call a convention, the delegates can rewrite anything. They could write gun laws, they can rewrite abortion laws, and you could just see it like opening up Pandora's box. But I think, though, the general idea of citizen-funded elections is noteworthy, and we've talked about it in education in the past. Like, wherever the student wants to go, that's where the funding should go. Literally backpack-funded, schools. The government says, hey, you got $50 in your backpack. Wherever the student, walks into school for their backpack, that's where the funding should go. And so I think the same kind of model is worth exploring when it comes to elections. There's other things we've talked about in the past, like nonpartisan districting, right? So gerrymandering, getting rid of gerrymandering. I don't know how much that will impact, but I do like kind of the decentralized form of finance to warp the incentives in the constituency's favor. But yeah, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but
Good
highly
breakdown.
recommend that book because it breaks down the problem to the point where you realize no matter what your issue is, if it's LGBT rights, if it's climate change, if it's, energy, cheap energy, if it's, your housing, your mortgage policies, like all of those are underpinned by campaign finance laws, unfortunately. And I've been on Capitol Hill to talk to people about this, talk to Rand Paul about it, and he's like, I agree, but I'm a constitutionalist and free speech is free speech, so sorry. So anyway, I thought those were some ideas noteworthy enough to throw out as a potential solution beyond the transparency that Bill Gurley mentions.
Yeah. Good shit.
I'm curious.
Uh-oh.
Well,
I didn't say any words.
hey, your face said everything. I want to kind of bring it back to what happens maybe if the government does start regulating AI, because the thing that was brought up in the talk that was scary to me is this idea that if you basically say, okay, we can't do any improvements to any particular models or anything, they have to be run through like a regulatory body. The point that was made up was that like, well, AI is going to be in literally everything soon. So this is basically just a backdoor for the government to control everything.
All technology.
All technology.
Not
right?
just, software, generally speaking.
The thought I've had is like, well, what happens in that particular paradigm? Like, there are these people here who want to use this technology, and it's become permissioned in the same way that money is permissioned now. And I know we've talked a little bit about how there's like actually some sort of overlap between like the Ethereum and the AI thesis, and we talked about it with Kevin Kelly a little bit as well, I remember. And it's interesting, the thought that like ultimately in the end what could make crypto thrive is not so much the fact that like people want to have like a new form of money, but that they want to like develop software in a permissioned way, like outside the system. Because you can start thinking through like, well, what happens if the government says you can't do this, but then people are like, well, no, we do want to build that.
Right.
What does that look like? Well, it's like suddenly the whole tech stack, like maybe your servers need to become decentralized, otherwise the government can shut down the servers and everything. And like the whole way, we obviously need payments to be decentralized because they can shut that down.
Yeah.
All these choke points. It's like really interesting to think about
It
how
is.
that could play out. I mean, I hope it doesn't go that way, because that would be brutal in the early days at least. Like a world where like suddenly software becomes like healthcare is terrifying.
I can't even imagine that. Like, I don't
Yeah,
understand like
it is
the
hard to
practicality of, like a body like the SEC regulating every software deployment, right?
It'd be one of the biggest blunders in the history of humanity, right? Like if we are on the cusp of developing a technology that, if we just let run its course, could make like incredible breakthroughs. And
The thing is, it won't be a blunder for humanity because it'll be a blunder for the United States.
I just feel like if the United States does this, everybody's going to do. Like it's not the type of the type of problem that
I don't think that's the case. I think that other countries would see that as an incredible opportunity.
No. What I'm saying is there's no scenario where the U.S. bans this and they're just like, nope, not here. And they're like naive enough to think that like, oh, it's going to, of course, like if they try to do something super draconian, I think they're going to push that kind of worldwide in a way, because otherwise everything would just flee. It'd be so simple.
They're doing it for the purpose of capturing dollars. So if I think the trade-off is like, can we capture enough dollars? And then the math is like, will the United Kingdom usurp the United States in terms of its technological prowess and innovation and progress? And they might. And I think that other countries might take a counter approach to it. And I think that there are countries in the world right now in general that in the world of in the the industry of, generally speaking, innovation and technology are taking a very, very anti-regulation approach to the whole problem and allowing these things to flourish to see what happens.
Yeah. So, Stephen, what are you saying? So you're saying that
Yeah.
U.S. put some regulations on, and they're like, "Hey, EU, like we're going to use some sanctions, or we're going to use our diplomatic bargaining power to kind of coerce them to follow the same laws."
Yeah, it's the same as like a climate problem. It's a collective action issue because of the nature, the way in which software just sort of flows everywhere. Like you would have to put some sort of like coordinated roadblocks up with all of these other large
but
players
it's
in
also
the world.
the same why most of these climate policies by country leaders are bullshit, because
Right.
you have most of the population, India and China, who just
Of course, they're
don't
bullshit,
want to
but
subscribe
yet
to it because
they are enacted anyway.
Sure, they're
Sure,
enacted,
but like it doesn't
solve the
require
problem.
that every country participates.
Or is that what you're saying is the issue?
That is like where everything is trying to go, right? The big roadblock in climate stuff is like China,
And
and that
India.
is also
And
like a
India.
thing that people are talking about, India as well, but that's also a thing that people have been talking about in like AI. They're like, well, we need to regulate this stuff, but like the Chinese are just going to run away with it, and then they're going to start developing all this stuff. So like, can we do that? But it's framed as a sort of like collective action.
That kind of strengthens what Arman's saying, is that
It's half the world.
for humanity, it will still
It
exist.
will go.
And
It's
maybe for
going.
not U.S. and the Western world, but it'll still exist.
It will still exist, but it would be very like you're not going to move out of the U.S. to like
Hyderabad.
Thailand or
Yeah.
something to like use software that has better AI. Like if the US and the UK and Europe kind of get together and are just like, yeah, we're gonna
But that's a shorter term vision there. Like you would if the world flipped on its head, and if you're going to say, like, for example, the Eastern world became the innovators and all of a sudden became the superpowers of the world, and lifestyle and everything was just better there as a result of that, because software powers so much of the world. Yeah, you absolutely might. And if there's individual countries like Portugal, for some reason, that all of a sudden align with China and India, and life is just spectacularly better there for whatever reason, then you would, as an innovator, as an entrepreneur, and as a citizen, because there are so many benefits to be had. But let's like take like almost like a step back here. Like the deeper concern, the deeper problem here is like, if there is regulatory capture that takes place in the world of software, yeah, we do have a problem. And the first step is awareness. And I think that we've already seen what it can look like in healthcare, in all these other industries. In the education system, for example, I think there's a lot of pain in the college system. Like it just feels like fraud. Like it's just fraud at this point. Like to experience that level of pain in software would affect every single knowledge worker on like in I want to almost on the planet, but like with the aligned nations that would be like exposed to this type of thinking that, to Stephen's point, would like fall under US led regulation,
like the digital dark ages.
It'd be terrible. So on the one hand, I have hope that like these people have enough of a brain that it wouldn't happen, because here's the thing, like within healthcare, within education, within these other industries that have undergone so much regulatory capture, have we fell behind? Yes, we have. Our healthcare and our education and many other industries are not as good as many other countries, in particular Europe. Education is better, healthcare is better.
Well,
everybody knows
it's
that.
not that simple. The top tier of our healthcare is better. The top tier of our education is better.
Nothing is simple, but as a just general statement, I think
For the common man, you might argue
if you
that,
put it
yeah.
in a ranking system and you look at it holistically, there are other countries that have better systems in these departments. So we're willing to suffer in those areas. Why? Because it doesn't necessarily slow down innovation at large and the capital markets at large for the entire country. But technology and software is the reason that the machine of America, for the most part, of course, there's other industries. There's industrial innovation in general as well. It's not just about software, but software going through a Cambrian explosion, limiting that. I think we're smart enough to know to not limit that. I would hope so. So maybe I'm giving too much, sort of like, I don't know. I think that like
giving too much
money
credit
is
to their
powerful. I'm giving way too
Yeah,
much
it's
credit.
not a matter of them being smart or dumb. It's that they have an incentive to get money to get elected. How do they get money to
So
get
then
elected?
what happens
they
if
get
that's true?
donors.
Like,
Who
what-
are the
like, if that's
donors?
the
These
case-
large entrenched corporations who
But
want to
then that just
enshrine their
means
own
that
footprint.
we're just like purely fucked. Like there's nothing. Like if that's the case, then what's the point? Let's all move to Portugal or China. I mean, what do you mean? Like how are you going to innovate in that kind of economy?
Well, I mean, Europe is fucked in its own particular ways in other areas because of other incentive problems that they have. Like this is just like a nature of democratic government, and we make different trade-offs here than they do in Europe, and we have different upsides and different downsides in a lot of aspects. But yeah, like I think that if you look at throughout history, these things don't move in a way where it's just like, oh, there's like a little problem here, so we're going to pull back and adjust. What we do is we just build up. Sometimes for a
too late.
century, and then we have like an explosion. We have like
Right.
these sort of like fourth turning moments, and then like society in one giant snap completely changes. But like I don't know if we can like iterate very well. Like we seem to be like a species, at least socially, in the way that we have governments, where like we just need to have these blow ups for meaningful
Seems like a
change
good reason to
happen.
have a fourth turning.
It's a problem. I mean, look, like the innovation that's happening that is going to change the world is coming from here. The question is how many fingers will the government get in this pie?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Well, before we wrap up, you're in this industry. You're doing a little innovating inside of Techstars. We haven't talked in like 2 weeks. It feels like fucking a year.
Why does it feel like so?
I don't
How are you,
know.
man?
We're just used to talking to each other so much, and I don't know what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think for the audience, it'd be cool to hear just like you're roughly a week and a half in to an accelerator. There's only like 0.1% of startups that get a chance to be in these accelerators. So I don't know. What's it like? Are you overwhelmed with work? Are you underwhelmed with experience? Like I don't know. Just what's been going on with it?
Yeah, I mean, man, like I feel really, really, really lucky. Like I think that's what it comes down to for me. It's like I have always wanted to build this type of startup. Like I, like you, have always enjoyed the startup world, and I love building. And to know that like you can do that and bootstrap your way to that is a wonderful feeling. Like to just be like a real business and be profitable. And there's this other world, which is this tech world that we've been speaking about, which highly revolves around venture capital and angel investors and people that want to get a great return on their investment for the business that you're building. And I've always been intrigued by that because I feel like a lot of the smartest people, the people and the companies that we admire and use on a daily basis, like an Instacart, start exactly this way. And I've always wanted to know what that world looks like. It's almost like a Wizard of Oz sort of situation. Like, what does it look like to be a company that goes through one of these accelerators and raises venture capital and so on and so forth? So I am so overwhelmed in the best ways, but also just generally absolutely like fatigued to a level that I've never been before. I don't do anything else. Like I literally, but that's exactly what I wanted. Like I've dreamt of an opportunity to be immersed in nothing but building my startup. And I think for anyone out there who's like seeking that same feeling of like, I just want that. And to know that I'm surrounded by A, other startups, B, incredible mentors who can advise me and help me point my compass in the right direction, and C, capital that can aid and power and fuel my innovation. Like there's nothing better. It's unbelievable. And there's a reason, like I realized it very, 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 very quickly oh, I see now why 35% of the companies that come through here, which there are 3,700 of them, exit. I see now why. There's a playbook, and it's fucking awesome. And like, if you follow it, you have a good chance.
Are you
succeeding.
overwhelmed with like the amount of homework? Are there these like assignments, like you need to do this analysis and it's like your day's booked out, or is it like you're meeting a lot of people, getting feedback constantly? Like what's the day like?
So I can speak to Techstars in particular. The way that Techstars is structured is the first month is like, hey, the greatest benefit that we can offer you is a network of people, mentors, investors that can help you and become part of your network, your personal network for your company, for the life of your company and maybe beyond. So the first month is focused on that. So we're literally right now in the middle of something called Mentor Madness, where we meet from 9 to 3:30 straight with mentors, 20 minutes at a time. No, it's highly organized. I have 12 or 13 20-minute conversations a day. The only reason my brain is working and my mouth is moving today is because Wednesday is off. It's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday for 2 weeks straight. I'm meeting with 85 to 90 mentors for 20 minutes at a time with zero break. That's literally what I've been in the middle of.
So, I mean, can you even get value from a 20-minute conversation with a mentor?
Yeah,
or whatever?
because you're telling them about your company. They know a little bit about you in advance. You're telling them a little bit more, and you're determining like where is the intersection between your skill set, what we're doing, and how you can support us. And yeah, absolutely. You're adding 90 people to your Rolodex, people that are like signing up for like they're a Techstars mentor, and their job is like, what do you need? How can I help? Do you need to recruit a product designer? Do you need an investor from that fund? How many degrees away am I from that fund? Do you need feedback on product market fit? Do you need users to test your product? It's everything. So you're finding the alignment, you're going to the conversation, and then you're connecting and establishing a relationship for the life of the time that you're in the network. Where the fuck else are you going to find something like that? It's actually unbelievable
So
when you
do
really
you,
think
do you
about
think
it.
the value is coming immediately in those conversations, or is it like, wow, I'm going to meet these 85, 90 people, and then like
Both.
the value will happen later on when you
Some
need a
people
favor?
have absolutely blown my mind, and other times it's just like I'm not quite sure where this is going to lead, but let's stay in touch. And then like I'm already sending follow-up emails, and I'm being like, I recall that this was your area, and I'm already getting introductions, and yeah, like the kind of thing you'd get from a conference times 100.
Wow.
Because you're exposed to people that are, you're not having to woo them. You're not having, like, the whole thing, one of the Techstars mantras is like, give back. But while you're in the accelerator, it's take. You're here to take. And they want you to take as much as you possibly can from everyone. Like, what do you need? We're here to help you. And so until you exit this process, there's no giving back. It's just like, we're here to help you.
And I'm curious, like in these conversations, like one of the values I think is like you get brutal, honest truth.
Oh, yeah.
Have you experienced that yet? Like,
Oh, my head is spinning.
okay.
My head is spinning. I have gone through moments of euphoria to moments of like, what the fuck am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
100%. Like people have walked in the room in those 20 minutes and being like, I don't fucking get it. And it's like other people walk in the room and they're like, you're going to crush it. And this is awesome. And it's like, what's true? And so you're having to find your balance. I mean, that's one of the things that they warned us about this, like 90 conversations is like, you got to find your center again. and like one of the things that we have as well is an entrepreneur in residence assigned to each company. So I have an incredible one, Jeremy Yamaguchi, prolific entrepreneur, went through Y Combinator, sold his company, decided to become a Techstars mentor. Absolutely brilliant dude who like is my,
He's your sensei?
he's my sensei, and he's there in the center, and he's just like guiding me along. So like you just have all these resources, but yeah, it's a lot. I'm not able to, like, I am basically waking up at sometime between like 6:30 and 7,
Which is early for you.
which is early for me, and working or thinking about working until 12 midnight. And I'm leaving. I'm going to Techstars there by 8:30. I'm leaving at around 8 o'clock. I'm coming home. I'm
Kissing the
usually
baby,
not.
kissing the
I'm
wife.
usually not getting to kiss my baby.
Oh, 'cause she's asleep already.
She's already asleep. I'm rushing to try to get a kiss in, getting the kiss in, eating some kind of college style meal because that's the mode I'm in, and then getting back to it until I fall asleep and sleeping 6 hours and then next day. And it's a lot, man. Like, it is a marathon.
Well, I'm stoked you're on this journey because like the three of us have never been on it. You know, I've been on it, but like a different mode, you know, kind of
Right.
a self-funding, get straight to cash flow positive as fast as possible. This is a different journey. So we're a week and a half in. We'll get to check in with you
Yeah, so
along the
month
way.
one, just to share the process, is about the mentor network.
Yeah.
So they want to introduce you to as many people as possible, build your network, get to know, and then I'm going to pick up to 3 people to be my lead mentor. And I'm going to work with these people every single week. I'm going to check in with these people every single week. They're going to hold me accountable to everything we want to do and everything we want to build for these 3 months. By the way, the second day of Techstars, I got on a microphone at Petco Park and pitched in front of a ton of people.
What?
The second day. Like, that's the level that they're pushing you. Like, literally. The Innovation Day San Diego was at Petco Park, and they had all 12 Techstars companies get up and pitch. I didn't even know what my pitch was yet. Like, I mean, I did, but like, it was a lot.
Yeah.
So month 2 is about building, following product market fit frameworks and user discovery and so on and so forth, and build. And then month 3 is preparing for fundraising and demo day. And demo day, of course, is you get up, demo your product, and it's not what it used to be where it's like demo and cut me a check, but it's more for the idea of like presenting the progress that you've made during this time. And then after that, early next year, I'll go into fundraising mode. But
All right. Last question. I'm going to probably ask this like 3 times throughout the whole 3 months you're in it. But we just talked about politicians pitching to the donor class, to maybe their real customers, their constituency. How much do you feel you're building a product at this stage for potential investors versus potential customers? Because sometimes they may not necessarily like equally align. So, you know, you said it's a playbook. Is it a playbook to raise money, or is it a playbook to like
that's
scale
such a
and
good
get
question,
customers?
man. And it's something I think
that
I
is a good
thought
question.
it's like something that I was myself curious about. Like, are we just here to create the type of company that is investable? And one of the things I really admire about Techstars and every mentor I've talked to is that to raise money, build a great business. Like, build a great business. And what is a great business? What is a great business that is investable? Well, are you great in terms of your ability to sell to enterprise or prosumers or consumers? Like, there is no wrong answer. A great business shows traction, shows you're acquiring users, you can acquire them at a decent CAC, you can show revenue traction. Charts are going up and to the right.
Right.
And your job during these 3 months is to get charts going up and to the right. So the playbook is not so much like to create a wrapping around your company that makes it look investable to VCs. It is truly to go to the core of what it is to create a great business and do that and
Good.
engineer that,
Cool.
which made me very happy because you see so many horror stories as well in the venture world about companies that do well with raising money but don't really build anything of true value.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of seen a similar thing with investment bankers. Like, sometimes you talk to them, they just say whatever so they can sign you on and get a rip off whatever you sell for. But like the bankers who are like, didn't really care that much, just trying to give some advice, they're like, I don't know, build a business you don't want to sell. And then you'll sell for the most. And a business that you
Yeah.
don't want to sell is the thing that's going to just produce cash flow consistently and continue to grow over a long period of time. And
Right.
that's the best company to
Listen, there's
to sell.
another thing here. It's the timing. We're in September of 2023, and you can't fake it
Right.
in this market.
It's not 2020,
So, like,
2021.
Yeah, if we were doing this, like, did companies say, like, when AI first just like popped and ChatGPT came out, and a few kids got together and threw wraparound ChatGPT and said, I can diagnose your medical issues. Did they raise a lot of money? Yes. Can you do that today? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're not really raising a seed round right now without substantial revenue.
Right.
It's just not happening. Valuations are lower. Series A is so crunched. Most Series A level companies are just not able to raise. There's flat and down rounds happening, and that's not necessarily a sign of failure. It's just it's just an indication of the market that we're in. But things are picking back up as well. So like I think that the venture world is like a good indicator of broader markets to come. And so yeah, I think things are shifting, and I think that maybe we hit a bottom recently. So yeah, we'll see.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. All right, guys. I think that's a good place to wrap it. Big shout out again to everyone who we met in person at Permissionless. It really made our week, and we definitely shared it all with Arman and Eric, and got their FOMO peaking. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you next week. Love you lots.